Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
So it was announced today that Trump will be moving his regularly scheduled inauguration ceremony in favor of one that's going to be held indoors inside the US Capitol, right? Because normally the inauguration is this giant outdoor spectacle that goes on for miles and miles. This time around, they're going to be doing the inauguration inside. There is a stated reason for it that makes sense, but there's also an unstated reason that also makes sense. We'll get into that in today's video. But first of all, I want to point out, so obviously a lot of conservatives are actually very happy about this because they believe it is the safer thing to do, right? Because of many of the security concerns that are circling around this inauguration. Biden is still in charge of the Secret Service, as we'll talk about in a second. They're saying, thank God, right? Thank God Trump will be able to do this indoors and not be so exposed in that manner. But on top of that, you have the Democrats out there currently right now saying that Trump is just moving the inauguration because he's scared. And the reason he is scared is not because of any legitimate security or safety concern. It is because he is scared of small crowd sizes, right? No one's going to show up to his inauguration, which they also said back in 2017. To which I say that is a pretty bold talking point coming from a party that just lost the popular vote. Okay, you want to talk about a small crowd size? Let's talk about the fact that in 2008, you guys held a plus 12 advantage in Gallup poll nationally in terms of Americans' party affiliation. And now for 2024, in the first time for over a decade, you are now the minority party in America by ordinary Americans, right? So you want to talk about a small crowd size? Let's talk about the size of your party. But nonetheless, okay, we'll get more into that later in this video. I first of all want to explain to you why the Trump inauguration is being moved, and there is a stated public reason for this. There's also an unstated reason you could probably infer, but here's what they're saying publicly about it, okay? So from Donald Trump on Truth Social, he's saying the reason we're moving it is because of the weather, and it is going to be very cold. You can check your weather app right now if you think he's spreading misinformation about that. But anyways, the weather forecast for Washington, D.C. with the wind chill factor could take temperatures into severe record lows. There's an Arctic blast sweeping the country. I don't want to see people hurt or injured in any way. It is dangerous conditions for the tens of thousands of law enforcement, first responders, police canines, and even horses, and hundreds of thousands of supporters that will be outside for many hours on the 20th. In any event, if you decide to come, dress warmly. Therefore, I have ordered the inauguration, in addition to the prayers and other speeches, to be delivered in the US Capitol Rotunda as it was used by Ronald Reagan in 1985, also because of very cold weather. So essentially, right, this is not unprecedented in American history. There's no constitutional mandate. You have to have the inauguration outdoors. But the last time it was moved because of historically cold weather was Reagan's second inauguration back in the 80s. So, of course, that is the publicly stated reason. And, you know, when you looked at the weather forecast going into this week, it seemed completely legitimate. But, of course, there's the unstated reason, which is safety and security, right? Obviously, we know that Trump has faced multiple attempts on his life. And as Dan Bongino has pointed out, he did not think that the Secret Service was adequately prepared to handle this situation. Something he's been pointing out the entire time is like, look, I mean, you know, Biden is still in charge of the Secret Service. So you want to talk about the incompetence, for instance, that led to the Butler, PA assassination attempt on July 13th. A lot of that's still there, right? A lot of those issues are still there. And so a lot of reasons that people are inferring is that, hey, the reason they're canceling basically all of the outdoor events, right? Not just the inauguration ceremony, but also the inauguration parade is really not just because of the weather. It's because of safety and security concerns. And Trump also sort of alluded to that in his own statement, right? Because he kind of said, hey, the law enforcement's not going to be able to operate in prime conditions. It seems to me the truth is probably that it's a little bit of both. They kind of just think it's the overall best decision. But this is what Dan Bongino has been saying.
You're asking me, do I think the inauguration is safe? After yesterday's briefing, my answer is Probably not. And it pains me to say that. Now, it's one of those things, I'm speculating. The inauguration, ladies and gentlemen, hasn't happened yet. I'm just afraid that the people in charge at the top of the Secret Service and certainly at the FBI do not know what they're doing. Let me just say this. I think if President Trump at this point, given the people in charge of the Secret Service at the top and their known incompetence, I think if President Trump were to stay in the car and forego the walk, I would be comfortable. I have not been briefed in on the security plan. I wish I was.
Now, guys, just as a reminder, Dan Bongino is former Secret Service, so this is not some random political pundit out there saying this. I think he comes from a source of authority. My overall attitude on the Trump inauguration, and, on a personal level, I'm a little bit disappointed because I do plan on going, and I was going to go, and so now we got to figure out a new plan or something, or what we're going to be doing that day, because I already have tickets booked to DC, right? But really, my attitude on this the whole time has essentially been, we got to be a maverick about it, right? We cannot let these scumbags make us live in fear. You have to show a statement to the American people that, like, we're not going to govern in fear. We're not afraid, whatever. But, that's just my personal opinion. I also understand fully the counter argument. Okay, I'm not naive at all. Yes, there are legitimate concerns. And even on the point of the weather, okay, even if it's just the weather's the reason why this whole thing's been canceled, use your common sense. With the wind chill factor, I think the high in DC on the 20th is going to be like 25 degrees, but the wind chill factor is going to make it about 0 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's be clear there, right? About 0 degrees, maybe even under 0 degrees. And, logically speaking, you have to assume at the very least that someone's going to get frostbite or hypothermia, right? Someone, like, you're going to have first responders ready. It's really not safe for people to be standing outside for hours upon hours like that, especially in a national mall where there's like nothing to block the wind. So, this cold wind blowing everywhere. Obviously, right? It's not just about protecting Trump. I think it's also about protecting the people. So I get that totally, right? I'm young. I'm 21 years old. So my attitude is like, we're going no matter what. We're here to see this no matter what, right? But I understand you can't just be selfish about it. You have to think bigger picture, etc. But of course, what are the Democrats saying about it, okay? And this is arguably maybe one of the reasons why, personally, I'm not the biggest fan of the decision, although I get it, is because this is exactly what they're going to say. You have David Axelrod, for instance, the architect basically behind Obama 2008, and he's been seething over this election for a very long time. He says, in 1961, John F. Kennedy was inaugurated on the Capitol steps in wind chills of 7 degrees. It was almost as cold for Obama in 2009. Notice how they say it was almost as cold, not as cold. But anyways, in fairness, Trump is 3 decades older than both JFK and Obama were. Or does he just fear small crowds? Notice how they keep saying this. It's just because no one's going to show up to the inauguration. We have this guy saying Donald Trump is afraid of cold temperatures. Democrats aren't. And his proof of that is the fact that Senator Amy Klobuchar held her rally or inauguration or something in the snow. So therefore, because one politician did something in the snow, that means that Trump's reasons for moving his inauguration are completely illegitimate. Kind of a silly talking point there. And of course, you have Tim Walz, who also one time apparently gave a speech in the snow. And he says there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothing. So expectedly, right, the Democrats are using this as a unique opportunity to dunk on Trump. And especially in regards to David Axelrod, I have to say the small crowds argument is just absolutely hilarious. Because as I brought up in the beginning of the video, this is coming from the party that just lost the popular vote. So it's very bold to be saying that. But on top of that, guys, okay, before anyone talks about small crowds, do we remember Joe Biden's inauguration? I know, it's basically been memory hold. It's like it existed in a different universe or something. No one ever talks about this. No one seems to remember this. But let's go back, take the time machine to Joe Biden's inauguration on January 20th, 2021. That is the picture right there. That is the quote unquote crowd that showed up to Joe Biden's inauguration. And by the way, you see this crowd out in the distance, right, facing the Washington Monument. You may think, oh, Vince, see, at least there's some people there. No, Just as a reminder, those are not people. Those were American and state flags that were placed there to serve in the absence of a crowd. But 81 million votes, apparently, by the way, guys. And the stated reason, of course, for Joe Biden doing this was because of COVID, right? They said, oh, because of COVID, we have to cancel it. We have to do like a reduced, basically non-existent inauguration. But apparently, right? Okay, when Trump cancels it because of the weather and actual security concerns, that's an illegitimate excuse. So I'm going to say in response, okay, COVID was not an excuse for Joe Biden. He canceled his normally scheduled inauguration ceremony because let's remember, okay, changing the logistics of the inauguration, it wasn't just Trump who did that. Biden did that back in 2021, maybe in a different way, maybe for a different reason. But the point here overall is the same. They modified it to basically reduce the amount of people who could show up because of reasons they stated were like safety or security concerns. So in regards to Joe Biden, I could equally make the excuse, and by the way, I think it is largely true, if I'm being honest, that they use COVID as a pretense, as an excuse, because no one was going to show up to Joe Biden's inauguration because his support was completely astroturfed and insincere. I don't know, just saying. I mean, again, guys, I know we're taking a very nostalgic trip down memory lane right now, but anyone remember this? Anyone remember the Biden circles? Okay, this is his 2020 campaign. This is what he was doing. You're going to lecture us about small crowd sizes? You're going to lecture us about being too scared. You got to cancel something because no one's going to show up. Okay. Great campaign you guys run. 81 million votes, by the way. It is what it is. Okay. With that said, I mean, I think honestly, that's also my attitude towards this inauguration situation itself. It is what it is. Part of me's disappointed. Part of me is also relieved because not only am I not going to stand in the cold weather, but Trump's going to be safe. You know, everyone's going to be much safer because of this. They are still holding the regularly scheduled indoor events like the inaugural ball, the rally. Apparently, they're going to be doing something at Capital One Arena in DC as like a substitute, and Trump's going to go speak at that. But anyways, there you have it, guys. Again, I think this is all pretty bold and pretty rich coming from a party that lost the popular vote, but that's just me. With that said, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.